Welcome, everybody, to the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. Our special media guest tonight, presented by CB&S Bank, is our dear friend Lauren Sisler. Good to see you, and thanks for making a detour from Birmingham to Tuscaloosa on your way to Tulsa, Oklahoma to be here tonight.
I mean, it's not out of the way or anything. Hey, I'm happy to do anything. I will drop anything to come here and spend the evening with you and Coach Saban.
Well, Coach Saban, yes. Me, I'm just...
and Miss Terry, of course.
And Miss Terry,
Come
of
on,
course.
we got to give her
there
some
you
love.
Go. In all seriousness, you are doing a game this weekend in Tulsa. You've got Tulsa and Memphis, part of your ongoing career with ESPN, the SEC Network, AL.com. It's been so nice to watch you go from Channel 42 here in Birmingham, from what, Channel 7 in Roanoke, Virginia, and now all of a sudden you're on the national stage over the last few years. We're real proud of you.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun, and of course, you know, I've been embedded in the SEC footprint now for a decade, which is so crazy when you think about it, but I've had the opportunity to kind of expand my horizons. I've been all over the place this season and in the last couple of seasons, so enjoy it. College football, it feels like home, and it feels good to be back here, 2021, a little bit closer to normal, and I just love seeing all the smiling faces out here.
Yeah, definitely. You know what I also like, in addition to your work on the air, you do so much work in the addiction world, Addiction Prevention Coalition and so on, drawing the strength after, unfortunately, some very sad moments in your family's history. That must mean the world to you to be able to spread the word and help other people who hopefully don't have to go through a lot of what you and your folks and others have gone through.
Yeah, it's been a tremendous opportunity to just speak on behalf of both of my parents, losing both of them to prescription drug overdoses when I was just a freshman in college at Rutgers, competing in gymnastics, and having that opportunity to be a voice for them, be a voice for people that are struggling with addiction, struggling with mental health, struggling with the challenges that life threw our way. And, you know, I lived in shame for so long, was afraid to share their story because of what happened to them, but then realized that there's so many people that are impacted by this thing. And if I can just be a voice and help one person, then it's all worth it.
Well, it's been worth it, and you've done a wonderful, wonderful job. Coach Saban, as you can tell, just running a moment or so behind schedule, so we have the chance to chat. And here he comes right now as soon as we say that. This segment of the Nick Saban Show, presented by Royal Furniture, family owned and operated for 75 years. Royal Furniture, with locations in Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Memphis, and Jackson, Tennessee, for your shopping convenience. And the coach getting himself all situated in. Coach, good to see you, sir. How are you?
Great. Good to be here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. We hijacked Lauren. She's doing the ESPN telecast on Saturday in Tulsa. She's doing the Tulsa-Memphis game, and we said, hey, how about detouring on the way to Tulsa and swing through Tuscaloosa? And here she is, because she wanted to work with you again.
I couldn't pass up this opportunity, Coach. I can never say no to Coach Saban.
Oh, good to have you here.
Never happens.
It really is. Why don't you jump in, Lauren, with the first question of the evening for the coach?
Well, Coach, you're always kind enough to ask us media members how we're doing, so I'll return the favor and ask you how you're doing now as we cruise into week 6 of the college football season.
Well, you know, I think we're doing okay. I think that, you know, we had a good win last week. We continue to preach to the players. We talk about finishing. You know, that's like the number one word. You know, whether it's finish a block, finish a play, finish a game, finish a quarter, because that seems to be something that we have trouble to maintain intensity in a game, maintain our intensity. When we're motivated, we're a really, really good team. We play really well. Get ahead 35-0, and the score ends up 42-21. So, you know, I think that's the thing that this team needs to learn, just how to finish, how to stack, you know, good plays, good quarters, good games, good practices, you know, on top of each other, so that, you know, we can be a little bit more consistent when the game comes. So, you know, and I think that one of the things that, you know, I told the guys this week is you got to have a cue. You know, when you feel like you lose your intensity or whatever because we get ahead in the game, there's got to be a cue, you know, that, hey, I feel it, you know, I'm relaxing here, you know, I'm getting a little complacent. And then you got to pick yourself up. And, you know, that's a part of your training. I mean, that's something that I think you do in practice. they tell a story about snipers. They make snipers stay up for 24 hours without sleep before they start to train them to shoot, because they might have to sit there that long before they get a shot. So, but they have a cue. I'm tired. Now I really got to focus. Just like, our players have to have a cue. And, the dangerous thing about all this is when you play on the road and you allow the other team to come back in the game, then the momentum of the game swings, and now you have a lot of issues. So that's kind of been the message this week, and I don't really have a lot to do other than be with the team. So if you're asking me how I'm doing otherwise, there isn't much more.
There is no otherwise. I got you. It's always dangerous, I would think. You come off a big win at home. You're going on the road against a team that early this year was nationally ranked in the preseason. Not now, but you can't let that fool you. I mean, Jimbo's still put together a heck of a ball club. I'm sure the guys get that. Have they zeroed in mentally on that?
Well, I think this is a dangerous team, and I think this is a little bit of a trap game for us in terms of we had kind of an emotional game last week. There was a lot of emotion involved in the relationships and all the different things that, led up to that game. Mm-hmm. And now you're playing a team who's lost a couple games that nobody thought they would.
Yeah.
But what people have to remember is, they have a young quarterback because their quarterback got hurt in the first or second game. And this guy is, inexperienced, and it's probably caused them some issues in terms of their consistency on offense. But he's getting better every week as he gets more experience. So that the rest of their team is as good as anybody's team in the country. Right. They're fifth in the country in defense. They only give up 12 points a game, which is, really significant in this day and age when you only give up that much. They got really good front guys. They got a great front seven. And, they're capable. They've got capable players. They have 15 starters back from last year's team that was 11-1. All right, so minus the quarterback and minus losing the starting quarterback, that's impacted their team. But the rest of their team is a really, really good team. So when I say this is a trap game for us, you don't have, all the hype around this game. You got a team that's lost 2 games, so that makes them, a little probably humiliated and a little bit like a wounded animal in terms of what they want to accomplish and what they want to do and what better would serve them as to beat us. So we really have to respect all those things in terms of what we have to do. And the question we have to say is, okay, we don't have all the hype around the game. Can we still be motivated to play well? Mm-hmm. And secondly, we haven't really played 4 quarters yet. Can we go play a 4-quarter game? On the road, in a hostile environment where it's going to be difficult to play, can we do that? So it's all about, you got to ask yourself sometimes, who are we? All right, so what we put on paper so far is the things that I said. When we're motivated, we're really good. When we're not, we're pretty average. We got to be able to maintain consistency. We got to be able to play 4 quarters. We got to be motivated, not because of some external factor of what somebody says to disrespect you or whatever, but because it's who you are, what you want to be, what you stand for. Like all great companies, they stand for something. They stand for the principles and values, and they maintain those principles and values, and that's why they stand alone and they stand above and they stand for something. Well, that's how your team's got to be, not because of what everybody else says or thinks, but because of what you want to do individually and collectively as a group. So that's a challenge. I call these trap games where, psychologically, maybe there's not the same motivation, but you have to motivate yourself.
And speaking on motivation, you go into a pretty crazy environment at Texas A&M, obviously going into that environment with the 12th man. You talked this week and in previous weeks about you want Bryant-Denny Stadium to be like tops. When people come in there, that intensity from the fans. For you personally, in recent memory, where would you say is one of the toughest places to play where your team has really had to kind of get through it with the noise and just the environment?
Well, most recently when we played at Florida, which is the only SEC game we played on the road, we got ahead 21-3. The crowd wasn't a problem. They scored a touchdown and got back in the game. I converted a 4th and 6 that got them back in the game. Then they went down and scored. And then it was tough after that. Yeah. It was tough for us to control the tempo of the game. I mean, I think last week our fans did a wonderful job in the game
Exactly.
of affecting, Ole Miss in the game. I mean, those fourth downs, we stopped them 3 times on fourth down, which is like 3 turnovers, got another turnover, which set up a score. So that's 4 turnovers in the first half, basically. And the fans contributed to that because they were loud, and it was down there in the student section. The students did a great job and made it hard for them to operate. They get off the ball late. You get a jump on them. And then, we got some real critical stops there that made a huge difference in the game, huge difference in the game.
Coach, why don't we take a phone call? You know who's joining us first. It's going to be Pee Wee from down in Grand Bay, Alabama, and he's going to be our first questioner of the night. Brought to you by Alabama 811. Remember, folks, always contact 811 before you dig. Call 811 or visit al811.com. Pee Wee, how are things down in Grand Bay, sir?
Doing well, Eli.
Good, good. What's on your mind?
Coach, last week the offensive line probably played their best game of the year so far. But again, we're heading out on the road into a very hostile SEC environment at A&M with 105,000. I was just wondering, how has the offensive line this week kind of just come together, gelled, to prepare for, again, a very, very loud environment and trying to get through all of our counts and everything that we'll probably have to go to because of the noise.
Well, Pee Wee, I got to ask you a question. All right, since you're sort of the surrogate offensive line coach here, have you been in full strut all week this week, based on how the line played? Is that why you're calling in so early?
Well, honestly, Coach, I had a little bit of trouble today. I had to go put my mom back in the hospital today. But
no,
other than that, it's all business.
Let me say this. The plan last week for the game was because of their defensive structure. All right, they play a 3-2-6 defensive backs. All right, was to run the ball and control the tempo of the game on offense because we were going to run the ball for 2 reasons. All right, we wanted to shrink the game so that their good offense didn't have the ball all the time. And number 2 is the structure actually invited us to do that. So if you have enough patience that you're willing to do that. And the offensive line did a really good job. B-Rob did a really good job in the game, had 171 yards rushing or whatever. And it was mission accomplished in every way. Now, this week, all right, we're going to play probably all their down guys are going to play in the NFL someday. They play a 4-3 structure. They move up front a lot. They run a lot of stunts. They cut gaps. Their people do a good job of penetrating. They have more negative plays than any team in the SEC in terms of sacks, tackles for loss, because of the way they play and the players that they have doing it. So this is going to be a huge challenge for the offensive line. Huge challenge for the offensive line. I think it's a challenge playing on the road. We're going to have to be able to communicate. We're going to have to be able to get the snap count. We're going to have to not let them beat us to the punch up front because these guys are very good. And I don't care if it's a running play or a passing play. We have to be able to protect. They have some significant pass rushers, so that we're going to have an opportunity to make some plays down the field. So. We'll see how we play this week, and then we can have a conversation next week.
Sounds fair enough. Pee Wee, thanks for calling in. And by the way, before we break, you mentioned Brian Robinson. I'll throw in Will Anderson, both guys getting honored by the conference this week as Players of the Week. The Maxwell Club gave them national honors this week. Again, it's a whole team effort, but it was nice to see, though. I mean, heck, Will Anderson lived in the Ole Miss backfield half the day Saturday.
Well, Will's an outstanding player. He did a great job in the game. I think we had a much better scheme, to play defensively against them. We weren't trying to substitute people all the time. And, one time we got caught with 12 guys on the field. They actually did sub. So the officials missed the sub. The play was toward their sidelines. But we learned something. We always watch for the sub in the press box.
Right.
So as soon as the other team subs and they're a fastball team, we sub a guy to slow the game down. That's part of the plan. But after I learned something, and it probably a valuable lesson, is just because they sub, if the officials don't come and put their fist out, they're not holding for substitution.
Right.
So, and when you have a play that goes out of bounds on their sidelines, which was the previous play, now you got 42 guys standing there. Who knows who came in and who went out? And that was kind of the situation. So we need not to sub unless the officials give us the two fist. Right. Because if they miss it, then we won't get caught with 12 on the field. All right, which was a big play because it was a 3rd down and 4, which we could potentially have gotten a stop, and they got a 1st down on that. So, but we learned something, so we'll be able to do a better job of managing that. So it's probably worth the lesson that we learned, in that situation.
Exactly. That's Coach Nick Saban. Our special media guest, Lauren Sisler from ESPN and the SEC Network and AL.com. We're coming right back with more right here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. 4th and a yard. Running back, Ely finds an opening, gets stacked up. I don't think he got there. I don't believe he made it. I don't believe he made it. Alabama's Jordan Battle came through. A lot of folks came through, and he did not make it, and that was one of the key turning points in the ball game as Alabama stopped Ole Miss early in that really at the end of that lengthy drive. This segment of the Nick Saban Show presented by New Coke Zero Sugar. New look, improved taste, New Coke Zero Sugar. Lauren Sisler is our special media guest tonight. She's joining us from ESPN and the SEC Network. And now, why don't you throw another question in the coach's direction, Lauren?
All right, Coach. So I know popcorn's been a popular item this week. And don't worry, Max, and I know you're probably looking at me like, where are you going with this question? Don't worry. I'm not going there. But I want to know, if you are a football fan, if you are hanging out watching football, when you go to the concession stand, what's your favorite thing to order at the concession stand?
Well, let me ask you a question. Whoa. When do you think the last time I've ever been at a concession stand is? And when do you think the last time I ever did a tailgate? Never.
Never.
Never been at a tailgate in my life.
So if you could dream it
So
up.
do you have any idea where I am during the game? I mean, is that...
You don't dream about, like, the stadium dogs, You don't dream about what that life could be like? One day? When little James is playing football, you'll have that opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Well, that'll be fine. I'll be glad to go to the game. All right. But I don't really know. I do know, and I apologize to all of our fans out there, that I know like 40% of the people who work concessions at the game,
they didn't show up.
Weren't there for whatever reasons. God bless them, one way or the other. But I know it made a little inconvenient for some of our fans. But no, I don't. I just, my experience relative to football has never been that part of being a fan. It's always been go to the game, coach the team. So maybe one day I'll get a chance to do these things, but it's not really on my bucket list or anything like that.
Listen, since we're kind of off off the hard subject of X's and O's, let me take a question from the Nick Saban Show blog on AL.com. And this is from Michael in Homewood, Alabama. He says, "Hey, Coach, I'm sure you've gotten to meet a lot of famous and distinguished people in your career. But is there one person who's still alive today that you haven't met that you'd really love to?"
Wow.
Interesting question.
Yeah, it sure is. I can say there's a lot of folks, and I think sometimes you don't realize or you don't think about what you just asked until someone's not there. You sort of take it for granted that, you'll always get the opportunity at some point in time to meet them or see them or develop a relationship with them, even though you have a tremendous amount of respect for them. And, like I'll use probably a pretty stupid example, but Like I always wanted to see Elvis Presley. I was young,
Sure.
all right, but I always wanted to see Elvis Presley. And I always thought, oh, I'll go see Elvis Presley sometime. Well, then that time never came. So I think there's more probably people like that I think about when you ask that question, that I always wanted to meet, that I never met, that now I don't have an opportunity to meet, and you don't realize it until it's too late.
Yeah.
And I think that, you are a speck in time situated between the past and the future, so I think all of us should, sort of take advantage of the moment. We learn from things that happened in the past. Hopefully that helps us have a better quality of life and be happier in the future, but not to have gratitude for the things that we have, the days that we have, the opportunities that we have. I guess it's a good time to bring up Fuller,
Yeah, I was gonna bring that
Goldsmith.
up.
I mean,
Yeah.
Fuller was probably, I know I got Walt's mom came to see me tonight. Be Like Walt, everybody remembers Walt. And she
Sure.
gave me this little wristband, which he used to meet me for, 13, 14 years at the bottom of the steps every night before I came to the radio show to wish me good luck and give me he would always predict the score.
Yep.
And, Fuller was a great fan. He suffered for 14 or 15 years now with leukemia. He's always been a part of the team. He always came to practice, always had great relationships with the players. The players loved him. He actually worked in a nutrition center and, helped the culinary people because that's what his hobby was. And
Right.
he would fix meals and stuff for the players. And, our thoughts and prayers are with his family. We're going to miss him a lot. He was just here a few weeks ago.
Yeah, he was sitting with Miss Terry.
Yeah, and was in Miss Terry's box for the game on Saturday. So we're saddened by the fact, but hopefully he's in a better place now and not suffering.
Amen to that. Let's go to the telephones. Christian is with us from Cullman, Alabama. Hello, Christian. Good evening.
Mr. Eli Gold and Coach Saban, how you guys doing? Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll
How you
Tide.
doing?
Oh my God, I actually got through. I'll tell you what, I've been a Bama fan for as long as I can remember, honestly, and just growing up watching you coach all the games, Saban, and everything like that. But I I've got quite a few questions, but I know you don't have all the time in the world. But I'll ask you. My first question is, you've had many coordinators over the years that you've hired. I'm curious what you look at when it comes to, like, hiring offensive and defensive coordinators, such as guys that you've had. Like, you got Bill O'Brien, who's replacing Sarkisian this year, and currently Pete Golding. You've had guys like Pruitt and Kirby Smart. What do you look for in that? And then as far as the A&M game, how do you handle the tough environments such as what we're going to face this Saturday at Kyle Field?
Okay, well, to answer your first question, I think whether it's a coordinator or anybody on our staff, there's some basic fundamental things that I always look for is, first of all, what kind of character does a person have? And sometimes that's hard to judge. But that's an important factor because you want somebody that's going to set a good example in your organization for the players, who can buy into the principles and values of the organization and the standard that you'd like for it to do, and be a leader to sort of implement that to the rest of the people that they're responsible for in the organization. So their character and ability to be somebody that somebody can emulate is really important. The second part of it is their ability to communicate. I think, leadership is a lot about knowledge and ability to communicate. And I don't think you can be in a leadership position if you don't do that well. When I'm talking about communicate with young people and keep them motivated and inspire them to learn and do the things the way that you want to do them. And, the part of that knowledge that really is important too is also the fact that they have some track record of doing what you're sort of going to hire them to do, right? Because that's probably the best indicator of whether they're going to do that well or not. So I would say fundamentally, those are probably the things that I look for. I think the other thing that comes into the communication realm is how they going to fit on your staff, how they going to fit with the rest of your people. You know, sometimes there's really good coaches, they're really good people, but their personality does not fit very well with the rest of the people in the organization. And that can cause a lot of internal strife and a lot of internal problems because we work a lot of hours together, so people have to be able to get along. And, you know, look, to answer your second question, you know, every game you play on the road in the SEC is a difficult circumstance. I mean, there's 100,000 people at every game. I don't care if you're playing at LSU, Tennessee, Kyle Field, whatever. And the players have to have tremendous character to be able to stay focused on what they have to do to be successful in difficult circumstances. And I think, you know, all great competitors can overcome adversity. And that's what makes you a great competitor. Anybody can compete in ideal circumstances and in ideal situations. So, and I think that, you know, you got to embrace these kinds of challenges. And I think one of the things that's great about sports is each week you have the opportunity to clarify exactly who you are in terms of how you play. And I'm talking about from a competitive character standpoint. How do you get affected by the other team's crowd, what other teams say to you, what other players say to you, and can you stay focused on what you have to do? So, you know, it's a challenge, but you have an opportunity to clarify exactly who you are in terms of how you handle those kind of situations with maturity and ability to stay focused so you continue to do your job well.
We're going to come right back. Great answer from Coach Nick Saban. Our media guest is Lauren Sisler from ESPN and the SEC Network, and we are coming right back. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Here's the play action fake and open, wide open. Cameron Latu, touchdown, Alabama. They sold out. They sold out to stop the running back Robinson. Nobody picked up Cameron Latu. Touchdown, Alabama. 9 receptions, 122 yards, 5 touchdowns for the tight end out of Salt Lake City, Utah. As we welcome you back to the Nick Saban Show, presented in part by Alpha Insurance for auto, home, and life insurance. Call Alpha. Lauren Sisler, jump right in, young lady.
Coach, I had the opportunity to do some media training this summer with Bryce Young and some of your players, and Bryce Young specifically, just a very mature young man. I'm curious to know from your vantage point how you've seen him grow and develop from the time that you recruited him until now.
Well, you know, Bryce has always been very well grounded. I mean, even when we were recruiting him when he was in high school, you know, just has great character, good communicator, quiet in a lot of ways, doesn't talk unless he's spoken to, but he's very intellectual in terms of not just football, but in all parts of what he does. He does well in school. But he's very instinctive on the football field. You know, I always say, you know, some guys are smart, but they can't process. They're not instinctive. I always use the baseball analogy of, you know, you can teach a guy how to swing the bat. You can teach him what the strike zone is, but when the ball leaves the pitcher's hand and gets to home plate, you can't teach him whether it's a good pitch to hit or not. I mean, there's some intuition that comes in there, just like a defensive back or when he comes to the reception area. Is he going to intercept the ball? Is he going to swat and hook? Is he going to break down and tackle a guy? You can teach him how to do all those things, but at that moment, you know, full speed moment of impact, what decision is he going to make? And Bryce is very, very instinctive. He can read the coverage. He knows what's going on. He can, you know, look at the front and tell, you know, where's the pressure coming from? How do I need to rope this protection so that, you know, we have a chance to block him up. He knows when he's hot. And he seldom gets frustrated. Got a little bit frustrated in the fourth quarter of the game. He thought he missed a throw through an interception. But, you know, those are learning experiences for him. And, you know, we had a little talk about that this week about, you know, it's you got to take what the defense gives. Don't force things. Don't push things, and always be able to play the next play because you got the ball. You can't get upset about what happened on the last play.
Yeah. Lauren, you mentioned media training, and very quickly for our listeners who may not be familiar with that, what goes on when you as a media member are teaching something to a player?
Yeah, well, we, just kind of get the guys in the room, go through some of the do's and don'ts, talking about social media, things that, how you want to portray yourself, how you want to be authentic. You want the media to fall in love with you, to love your story, and to be the best version of yourself that you can be, and for the Alabama football program, right? And then we go through some mock interviews because you're always going to get those curveballs, and the media will ask questions that you may get caught off guard with. And so the goal was just to get those guys thinking on their toes and to be able to answer some of those tough questions in tough situations. And ultimately, again, to put themselves out there in the best light that they can.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think one of the things that, we do, at least LeMaster has been doing this for us for a long time, is we do media training with our players. Because it's probably the best opportunity that they have to create value for themselves relative to who they are by how they represent themselves publicly.
Sure.
I tell players all the time, there may be 20 million people watching this interview on ESPN. I want every one of them to say, I want to hire that guy someday.
Yeah.
All right, so, but we don't just throw them out there and assume that they learn how to do this somewhere along the line. There's preparation when you're going to go in to be interviewed. And that preparation includes what you want to talk about. That's number one. How do you bridge questions that you don't really want to answer, and how do you give a short answer and then bridge it into something else that you really want to talk about? And, sometimes it's not your question to answer.
Yeah.
All right, so don't be afraid when they ask you, who do you think coach should start at left corner? And you say, that's not really for me to answer that question. Ask coach.
Exactly.
All right, so there's a lot of little things like that that really can entrap players and make them look bad. I mean, where you look, when you're being interviewed, all these things. And it creates value. And with things like name, image, and likeness, you have opportunities, in terms of, the mindset that you have, in terms of the image that you present and how you play. Everybody makes choices and decisions about what kind of character somebody has. Football, you got a helmet on. You're like a gladiator. You look in the program, you see name, number, height, weight. That's what you see. Then you make a character judgment on that guy by the way he plays. All right, that's number one. So you have an opportunity to create value for yourself by how you carry yourself, the discipline that you play with, and the character that you have as a player. Number one. Number two, you get plenty of opportunities through education, opportunity to get an education, to create value for your future. We have career development programs where you can do the same thing. All right, but every time you make a bad choice and decision, you take away from that. The one good thing about name, image, and likeness for players is it does place a value on a player creating value for himself, for somebody to say, I'd like for this guy to represent our organization, and we're willing to pay him money to do that. Well, you're not going to pay him money if he's doesn't have a good image, and he hasn't created value for himself by how he carries himself as a person, what kind of student he is, what kind of competitor he is on the field. And then when he gets the opportunity to speak publicly, whether it's in an interview or whatever the setting is, you're going to create an impression of him in terms of how he represents himself.
Sure.
And that's going to create value for him one way or the other. So I think this is really, really important. And I think our guys have done an outstanding job of how they've represented the university and themselves and how they've created value for themselves through the years. I mean, guys like Smitty and Mac Jones last year and all the opportunities they had, I mean, first class in every way. But you can't just assume that they know how to do that. I think media training is a big part of that.
It really is. And you
Absolutely.
can really steer an interview the way you want it to go. There's a lot of things you can learn. Coach, we have a visitor right in the back here with a question for us. Good evening.
Okay. Hey, I'm Jay Kendrick. I'm part of the co-ed cheer team, and I was wondering what are some good motivational qualities that you found in your leaders on the team from your players?
good motivational qualities, I think the first thing a player has to do is set a good example. You have to be somebody that somebody wants to emulate. Now, if you're not willing to buy in and doing everything that you're supposed to do in the organization, I'm just not talking about the way you play. I'm talking about, did you come to the meeting on time? Did you go to class? Did you do everything that you were supposed to do relative to the principles and values of the organization? You don't have to agree with them or disagree with them. You have to do them. All right, because they're set out, you signed up for it, so you have to set a good example in all those areas. You can't be on the leadership if you come walking in a meeting late. And then you're going to tell somebody to do something, and they're going to say, how can you tell me to do that? You didn't do what you're supposed to do. All right, so that's the first thing. All right, you got to set a good example. You got to be somebody that somebody's got that wants to emulate. And then you have to have the ability to communicate and care enough to help somebody else for their benefit. Not for your benefit, for their benefit. Your benefit's manipulation. Their benefit, you're legitimately trying to help them. And what people don't understand is leadership to me comes like power of one. You affect one person at a time. A lot of people think a good leader stands up in front of a group and gives some motivational speech and that changes everybody's life. It doesn't work that way. You know, sometimes you just call somebody over and say, hey, that's not how we do it here. You know, if you just listen to what coach says or you just do it this way, you know, it's going to work out a lot better for you. And because you set a good example, that power of one is going to help that person grow and develop and mature so that someday they can set a good example for the next person to come along. And I think that's some of the key things. Yeah, but you have to be willing to serve. All right, you have to be willing to serve other people. All right, or you're never going to do that. If you're self-absorbed in terms of how it affects you, you're not going to look over to this guy and say, I'm going to help this guy because he's not getting it right. So you can't be a selfish person and be able to be a good leader. You gotta care enough that you want to serve other people and help them.
A great question, and listen to the man. He knows what he's talking about. We're coming right back. More with Coach Saban right here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Robbie Oots is the up man. For Robinson, looking for another TD. He finds the opening, and he's in. Touchdown again. Brian Robinson's fourth touchdown of the day. He's got 6 already this season on the ground as we welcome you back. Eli Gold with you. Lauren Sisler is our special media guest. Coach Nick Saban is alongside. Lauren, why don't you jump on in with the coach again?
Coach, I'm curious to know, when you go out and recruit players, we keep talking about, your brand and presenting yourself in a certain way. What is something you key in on when you go watch a player or talk to a player in person as you're recruiting them? Some key things that you look for that gives you confidence that they will be a good fit for your program?
Well, basically, we kind of lay it out that, we want you to be the best version of yourself. We want you to be more successful in life because you're involved in the program. And we feel like we're going to do a lot of personal development things, whether it's mental conditioning for success, peer intervention for behavioral issues, leadership, communication, some of the things that we've talked about. And obviously the thing that creates the most value for your future is get an education, which means graduate from school. It means you're going to college to prepare yourself for the day you can't play football. So everybody should look at it that way. We have career development programs that you're going to be involved in, and we want to see if we can help you develop a career as a football player. So we're going to have the best facilities, the best coaches, the best strength and conditioning, medical staff, nutritionists, all that stuff. So, and then when guys actually commit to us, I usually say to them, I don't want you to commit to Alabama. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I say, I want you to commit to all the things that we're going to do here to help you be successful as a person, as a student, and as a player. And we talked about all those things. You want to commit to those things, you're going to have a great career here, you're going to create a lot of value for yourself, and you're going to have a chance to be very successful. Yeah, Coach, I want to commit to that. So not only did we get a good player, but we got somebody that is committed to doing the things that we want them to do here so that they have a chance to be successful. So they're starting to buy in before they ever get here. So that's kind of what I say to them, and that's kind of how we try to recruit them. But I think the key to the drill is that we are going to create value for people when they come here. That's how we pay guys back for playing for us. We create value by personal development, making sure they graduate, helping them develop career as a football player. All these things create value for them in their future. So, and we want to do it better than somebody else does it. And we have an institution, an athletic department, and a support group in terms of the people who support the program, the fans, and everybody else, who are willing to go out and say, we are willing to do that. All right, we'll invest in all that. We'll spend whatever it takes. And there was a statistic a few years ago, I haven't kept up with it, that we were in the top, 2 or 3 in revenue created by athletics, but we were first in spending per player, whether it was on academic support, tutoring, nutrition, whatever. So we're willing to invest more in the player. So if we're willing to invest more, we're going to create more value. So therefore, they're going to be better off coming here than going someplace else.
Very, very simple, but you're right. And of course, the bottom line is the Alabama brand. Who wouldn't want to play at the University of Alabama? You got to want to commit to that, certainly. Coach, the clock on the table here in front of me says it is time for your final word here on this Thursday evening. It's presented each week by Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
Well, I think this is a critical game for us because this is an opportunity for us, our players, to show what they can do. Can they play on the road in the SEC and maintain intensity for 60 minutes in the game against a very good football team in a very tough environment? Secondly, can we play for 4 quarters in the game? Can we keep our motivation up? Can we be the kind of team that we're capable of being for an entire game? And I think that's going to be critical, in this game. I really do believe that. And there's going to be more opportunities for other players to play in this game. We've lost a couple guys from an injury standpoint. Yeah. So they're going to have a great opportunity. And this is going to take a great team. This is going to take everybody buying in, doing the things that they need to do to be their best as a football player in this game, because it's going to be tough game for us, and we're looking forward to the challenge.
Quick question, certainly not on game week, but sometimes during the season, do you get a chance to talk to Jimbo? I mean, neither of you have a whole heck of a lot of off time. Do you ever chat?
I don't chat with anybody. I mean, I really don't. I don't talk to people during the course of the week.
Gotcha.
I mean, Miss Terry, if I'm lucky.
And us on Thursday nights.
If I'm lucky. But, I mean, I don't see anybody except our staff. We work. And look, my days are so sort of planned out, all right, as to what I'm going to do on Monday when I come in at 7:30 in the morning, at 8:30 in the morning, at 9:30 in the morning, at 10:30 in the morning. And every day is like that, all right? And I don't have a lot of time to say, I'm going to call my buddy, see what he's doing. I don't have much time to do that. I enjoy doing that. I wish I had more time to do it, but I don't.
Yep.
So I don't call coaches and chat with them and see how they're doing and all that. I mean, and nothing personal. And I don't think most of them that are doing a good job and working hard, they don't do it either.
And they don't have time to take your calls.
They don't have time to do it either. So they look at their phone and say, well, what's this guy want?
Yeah.
I mean, and most people that know you kind of know that you're focused on what you're doing, so they don't call you.
Gotcha.
I mean, there's a couple people out there that I wish they would call me every now and then, and they don't. So I don't talk to hardly anybody, not just coaches. It just don't really talk
just
to
the
anybody.
way of the world for you. Well, listen, with that, we're glad you come out and talk with us every Thursday night. It's always a lot of fun, and thank you again for your time this evening.
Well, thank you, and I always enjoy it. So thank you all for the support they've given us. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Nick Saban with us, and Lauren Sisler in the minute we have remaining. Thank you for detouring on your way to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we're so proud of you, having watched you develop in your career from the early days to where you are now. Keep up the great work.
Hey, I appreciate it, and thank you guys for also being great fans and always the warm welcome. It's been great. This is a decade for me. I can consider myself an Alabamian now, I think. Right?
Amen to that. You got it.
Thank
Lauren
you.
Sisler joining us. We're going to come right back and wind things up for this Thursday evening, so don't go away. You're listening to the Nick Saban Show on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.